So I have never minded QR code menus personally, but I've had two QR experiences recently that were so terrible I may have completely turned against them. One night, I went out to dinner with my wife and I decided it would be nice to leave my phone at home. It's not something I usually do, but it's not an unreasonable thing to do, right? The restaurant only had a digital menu and I simply could not view it. And then a week or so later, we went to a cool, like, basement bar before a concert, and I had my phone, but I didn't have service, so you can guess how that went. And that, dear viewer, is why I made this. It's a combination scanner and printer that, in theory, you could bring to a restaurant and turn a QR code menu into a physical copy right at your table. So there are 5 high-level steps involved in going from a QR code to a nice itemized printed menu. Step 1 should be obvious. That's to scan the QR code and parse the URL. Step 2 is to access the website at that URL and capture it as an image. Basically take a big old screenshot of it. Step 3 is to extract all the text from that image, because all we care about are the words, letters, and numbers. Step 4 is the really fun one. That's where we take all the text we just extracted and feed it to ChatGPT, and we ask, would you kindly summarize and reformat this menu for me? And then step 5 is to just print it out. Now, if you're a software developer like me, you may be saying to yourself at this point, gee, Guy, that sounds like an awfully naive, clumsy approach to solving this problem. Well, I am sad to report that this works way better than it has any right to. Now, it is not perfect by any means. I'm obviously editing my footage to not show you all the failure scenarios, but in the cases that I'm able to get a clear image of a menu, it works pretty much every time if you're willing to forgive a few minor typos and missing prices. Now, I would not have predicted this, but it turns out that the most annoying part of this process by far is just capturing the websites as images. And that's because online menus are the Wild West. While some of these links are taking you to a nicely formatted, easily readable menu, many of them are pointing directly to a PDF file. Some of them are pointing to PDF files hosted on Google Drive. Some of them are just pictures of a menu embedded within another website, and some of them aren't even menus at all. They're just links to the restaurant's homepage. And so I tried to handle as many of those cases as possible, but at the end of the day, this is not a real product. That's not how I want to spend my time. So all of the code for this project will be available for you to run if you're feeling brave. And if you can think of any ways to improve this or any other part of the process, let me know. All right, let's quickly go all the way back to step 1. This one's actually really easy thanks to this new module from Useful Sensors. It is a $7 piece of hardware that will automatically scan a QR code, parse out the text, and transfer it over these little wires to your computer. I have mine hooked up to one of these little Wi-Fi enabled microcontrollers, which I use to send the URL off to be processed for steps 2, 3, and 4. Now the next 3 steps run together in a web server on my home computer, which means they aren't happening within the box itself. In other words, the box needs to be able to communicate with a remote computer, which arguably defeats the entire purpose. Once again, not a real product. How However, I do think it would be possible to get everything running locally within the box. I'm not sure how fast it would be given the current technology, but I think it could be done technically using something like a Raspberry Pi or even an old cell phone. Anyways, back to step 2. To capture the websites as images, I am using a Microsoft software library called Playwright, which is primarily used to test web applications. So it basically lets you script a browser and has a very convenient screenshot function. If I detect that the website is in fact a PDF file, I instead just download it and convert each page to a JPEG. To extract all the text from those images, I am using a library called Tesseract, which is pretty commonly used for optical character recognition, or OCR. And then I just use OpenAI's Python library for sending all that data up to ChatGPT. And here is the exact prompt that I'm using. Now, I should mention, as I film this, OpenAI is literally rolling out image input support for ChatGPT, which means I can probably skip the entire OCR step of this process. I tried it quickly before I left with just a screenshot of a menu, and it seems to work really, really well. So I can probably speed things up and hopefully make it more accurate too. And that raises a good question. How long does all this take? I obviously sped up the footage at the beginning of this video for non-boredom purposes. So here's the breakdown. Scanning the QR code takes between 0 and 10 seconds. I have to say the little scanner, at least the way I have it embedded in here, doesn't do so well in the sun, and it's really hard to tell if I'm actually pointing it at the QR code. Capturing the website as an image takes between 5 and 12-ish seconds, and most of that is just buffer time to allow stupid animations to finish, and occasionally I actually have to script it to click a button that says order online if the landing page is not the actual menu. The OCR process is generally pretty quick. That's between 1 and 5 seconds, depending on the size of the menu. The ChatGPT part of this is really weird because it streams the response back to me as if someone's typing it in real time, which if you've used their website, you've seen this behavior. But here's the thing, I'm asking for a sorted menu, and it couldn't start to type a sorted menu unless it already knew what was at the beginning and the end. So why doesn't it give everything to me at once? My theory is that it's artificially rate limiting people. I don't know. Anyways, ChatGPT starts sending me a response about 5 seconds after I send it the data, although it can take up to like 1.5 minutes to complete the whole thing. But since it's sorted, I can actually start printing the menu as soon as I get that first line of response. So it actually feels much quicker since I'm printing and receiving data in parallel. As a very quick aside, I have to say, I have mixed feelings about using ChatGPT for this project at all. While it is a very impressive, game-changing piece of software, I really don't like how it obfuscates its sources, and frankly, I find it kind of crazy that we're all seemingly so trusting of something with no concept of correctness. But I must admit that it and products like it are uniquely good at tackling problems like we have here, where there are a bunch of different data sources that are all formatted in kind of unique, unpredictable ways. And if I were to try to manually handle each one of those cases in my code, it would be impossible. I couldn't spend all that time. So, you know, this is a case where language models are really kind of the right and only tool for the job. Finally, let's talk about the printing stage. This is just a cheap, embeddable thermal printer module, which you can find on AliExpress, eBay, Amazon, wherever, for $20 to $50. This particular one is kind of a pain in the butt to work with because it operates at a higher voltage than my microcontroller. So make sure you shop around a little bit. I know there are plenty that run as low as 5 volts. I am running CircuitPython on my microcontroller, and I'm using this deprecated but still very functional library from Adafruit to drive the printer itself. It's very simple. You just set the text size and then send over the text you want it to print. All of the CircuitPython code will also be available on GitHub. I will leave you here with some footage showing the remainder of the hardware components, but I think that's all I want to say about this project. So I'm happy to answer any questions you leave in the comments, and as always, I appreciate you watching. Thanks a bunch.